Hi, I'm Heidi Zuckerman, and this is Art Matters, the Aspen Art Museum's program on art here in the Roaring Fort Valley and around the globe. Today, my guest is Ingrid Schaffner, and this is a repeat performance. So
Yes.
If you are watching online and you want to go back and watch Volume 1 or Episode 1 of our conversation, you can do that.
Which was so long ago we can't even remember. It was when when you hosted the Karen Klimnik exhibition that I organized.
Yeah.
In 2007.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think 2007.
Yeah.
So
It's nice to be back.
welcome.
Your beautiful new museum.
Thank you. And Ingrid is here as our curator in residence and is giving a talk tonight on legacy. So talk with me a little bit about your first visit to Aspen and then coming now. And of course we have a new museum, but what else have you noticed that's similar, different about yourself, about the museum?
Goodness gracious. All right, should I lay down on a couch and I'll answer this question for 2 hours?
Yeah.
So, of course, what strikes me immediately is your beautiful new museum. Michelle and I walked over yesterday to the old museum, and I can't even imagine that the Karen Klimnik show was in there. Mm-hmm. And, of course, that was such a special experience because Karen did the lift ticket, and to be here with her, an artist who loves the magic of snow
Yeah.
and winter landscape, was just very special. And so to come back 10 plus years later, and I've just finished the Carnegie International, an exhibition that I've been working on for 3 years, just closed at the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh. So I'm certainly in a different place with my work, and it's nice to have this time to kind of decompress and enjoy Aspen. But I'm so impressed by the museum. It's such a, the time that I've spent in it, people you can feel like people are just sort of dropping in to see maybe one show or come and have some time up on the deck or more kind of concerted looking. You've really made a space for art.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting because Karen is one of my favorite artists, and the show, your show that we took, the Karen Klimnik show, that was the first time we had taken a traveling show since I was here. We had always curated and presented all of our own shows, and I just thought it was a fabulous show, an incredible artist, genius curator, and it was really interesting for me to have the opportunity, and we've done it subsequently, but very infrequently. So it's, you know, it stands out for me as a significant time in the institutional history.
Well, I'm honored, and taking that show was really like taking like theater, because remember, Karen had these very specific installations. It was very theatrical in every way, and Karen is an artist that I invited to participate in the Carnegie International, and again, she was did her magic and her theater in our decorative arts collection. She did these amazing salon-style installations of her paintings, photographs, and her new video in a gilded frame in the Hall of Decorative Art. So, yeah.
And did she do a ballet?
Oh, and right, how could I forget?
Okay.
And the ballet. I arranged for Karen to meet the director of the Pittsburgh Ballet Theater, and they hit it off over their mutual passion for Marius Petipa, the first choreographer of the Russian ballet, who's responsible for the repertoire from Swan Lake to the Nutcracker. So the two of them are Petipa geeks, and so Karen, she won't use the word choreograph. For her, it's really like a ballet appreciation of favorite moments from Marius Petipa, but just heaped one on top of another. It was 15 minutes long. It was opening day. It was in our beautiful Carnegie Theater, which is this kind of gilded jewel box. And I think if you didn't know, you'd just think it was a really bad ballet recital where like one corps de ballet comes in and then there's a pas de deux and then they're all kind of layered on top of one another. But if you know Karen's work, you know that this is something that she's been developing over the years. As her ultimate ambition is to stage a ballet from beginning, middle to end. So this was kind of a movement towards that.
Yes.
She did the costumes, the wigs. It was very special.
Yeah. when Karen was here for the opening, she came to my daughter's ballet class.
Oh.
A couple of times, actually. And it was interesting because when you do ballet here in Aspen, with the Aspen Santa Fe Ballet, it's a professional company. And so the students in the school are expected to perform and behave in a certain way. And the parents are too. And included in that is never getting to watch the classes. So the parents would always have to sit outside, and sometimes there would be a glass door, and you would sometimes see the parents like trying to kind of look in. But it was, Miss Charlotte was the teacher when she was very little, and then Miss Melanie. And but I went and talked to the ballet teacher and told her about Karen and Karen's passion for ballet, and she actually let Karen inside of the room, and Karen got to watch 2 ballet classes, which I never got to do.
So something that even that the mother could not do, Karen was allowed in.
Yes. And then she sent my daughter a ballet bag and a bunch of like ballet things after. So
I've gone to the ballet with Karen, and she always sits in the front row off to the either far left or far right. And for her, it's the point of view that Degas had when he would go to the ballet, because you could see into the flies, you could see the dancers waiting to come on stage. And so it's a very particular perspective that she cultivates with her ballet appreciation.
Yeah, nice. Thank you very much for your kind comments about the museum. So it's nice to...
It's a place of museum joy, as I would say, yes.
Thank you. We just redid our strategic plan, and we talked about
that sounds not so joyful.
Well, we talked about cultivating joy, and so the fact that you picked up on that speaks volumes. So it's nice.
Yeah. So that was the ethos for the Carnegie International. Had exactly one wall didactic, one wall text, and it invited visitors to experience museum joy, which is the pleasure of being with art and other people doing the creative work of interpretation. And certainly that's work that we've been dedicating our lives to.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the process of curating the Carnegie, and where did you start? So right before this episode that we're filming, I had 3 of our young curators here, and they just collectively curated their first exhibition.
Right, and I met with them on the other day. We talked about installation as they prepare to do the installation of the exhibition of their peers. Yeah,
correct.
Work.
Yeah, and so I talked with them a little bit about how they came up with the theme, but the Carnegie International is, one of the most prestigious shows one could ever curate, and so with that, there's a certain, gravitas and expectation as well. So I'm curious about your process and how you approached it.
So it does come with a freight train of history. The Carnegie International began in 1896. The Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh opened in 1895, so just 1 year later. And it's the oldest it's the oldest survey exhibition in North America, and the only one older is the Venice Biennale, which started in 1895. So it's kind of like these kind of Gilded Age art Olympics. And this was the 57th Carnegie International, and my process began by answering an email from Lynn Zelavansky, who was the director at the time, who invited me to organize the International. I was at the University of Pennsylvania's Institute of Contemporary Art for 15 years, and it was a great opportunity. Oh, of course, right, bien sûr. So, of course, it was, as you said, an honor, and then for myself, a sort of great moment to kind of expand my own curatorial horizons, because to be able to travel in a way I've never traveled before, and I started work on this exhibition in the summer of 2015. It opened in October of last year, so I worked on it a concerted 3 years. And there were sort of many approaches, but one was the idea that the International, yes, it culminates in an exhibition, but for me, the whole process, like as soon as I started, I wanted the International to begin. So by giving talks, and I initiated a public series of drawing programs that I did. I conducted the first one, and they went right on through the exhibition, being led by artists and other participants in the show. So a way of building creative publics around the exhibition even before it began. And sort of confronted with the globe as your your field or your subject, and knowing you're not going to go everywhere in the world, I needed a structure for myself for the travel and research. And I decided to invite 5 colleagues in different parts of the field, whether it be geography or like different moments in their own work, to each go on a big trip with me someplace new to both of us. And so they kind of provided the trajectory for our itinerary, and I provided the cash for us to journey together as thinking partners. So these companions, as I called them, weren't advisors.
Yeah.
And it was very productive for me because it really got me out in the field in a way maybe I wouldn't have been so bold, and certainly going to places I wouldn't have necessarily thought of. I traveled with Ruba Katrib, who's at the Museum of Modern Art now, and she very specifically wanted to go someplace recently post-Soviet and near the Middle East. So we went to the Caucasus, So my travel for the international was very almost serendipitous, because but then very productive in this kind of way of opening up. But so it means I didn't travel. I didn't travel in Europe. I didn't travel to the usual places. But and the idea of the travel too for me was not to go searching for art to bring back to Pittsburgh. This is sort of colonial model we know is not contemporary.
Right.
But to have a deeper understanding of how the contemporary exists and takes hold in other places. And so an outcome of that research was to invite Koya Koya, who is the creative director of Raw Material Company in Dakar, Senegal, a space of contemporary art and curatorial practice. I invited her as part of the exhibition to curate an exhibition within the exhibition, drawing from the museum's own collection. So, so somehow I'm now on some little tangent here, but so sort of many operations within the making of the show.
So, who else did you travel with, and where did you go?
Okay, so
and I just want to actually pause for a second and say how much I love that idea for multiple reasons. One of which is a big part of what we do is travel, and like many things from the outside, they seem kind of glamorous, and from the reality, they're often sort of taxing. And one of the things about curatorial travel sometimes is that it's, you're usually by yourself, and because of the cost or whatever, and so it can be like inherently very lonely. So this idea of choosing someone to kind of go with you, and then particularly traveling as a woman, gives, I think, from my perspective, an additional sense of kind of
boldness,
safety,
confidence, yes.
Where you can maybe go out at night in a place where if you were by yourself, you would only go out in the daytime, or, and I mean, that could be in an American city too. It's not a comment on where you went, because I don't know where you went. But then also that idea of being able to talk with someone as you're looking,
yes.
which is so great. Because for me, that's like the greatest joy of art, is looking at it with other people and talking about it. So, and you can certainly do that like post facto, but as you're experiencing it, that's an incredible, the kind of companionship of that, of shared looking with someone who you really respect their eye as well, and who sees something in a way that you don't, because no two people can ever see something the same way. So I didn't know you did this.
Yeah, so,
I'm really-
you're
so I'm
super
curious about it.
perceptive. So you picked up on both the kind of sort of personal motives of kind of emboldening myself in the field and making trips a little less lonely, but that it was also the idea that this very ambitious and this big investment in this travel wasn't just about something that would just coming to me and then would be somehow expressed through an
Right.
exhibition. And I was inspired by the Carnegie Museum of Art is under the same roof as a natural history museum. And this idea that that model in the field of natural history museums where they're supporting research in the field. So that was a kind of inspiration for this idea of the companions. And only one of the 5 that I traveled with is a longstanding colleague, Karen Kwoni, from the Vera List Center for Art and Politics, and we've curated exhibitions together where, yes, we already have a longstanding creative curatorial dialogue. So we went to the Marrakesh Biennial, and we went to the Dakar Biennial, and then we went to Lagos to experience a megacity of the future as Lagos is. I don't know, I can't do them in order. Bizi Silva, the founder of the Center for Contemporary Art in Lagos, Nigeria, who sadly recently just passed away, but she received an email from a curator named Ingrid Schaffner saying, "Hello, would you like to travel any place in the world with me? I will pay." And so she, the curator in Nigeria, got that email and said yes. And we traveled to points in the Caribbean following her interest in research and art of the African diaspora. So we were in Trinidad, Barbados, Haiti, Bahamas, and Martinique. And I learned that there is no such thing as the Caribbean, right? So many nations, many languages, many cultures, many histories. With Dorian Chong, who is the curator at M+, which is, I think it's still yet to officially open, right? M+, it'll be the...
so too, but they have a show
They're doing
up.
programming,
Yeah.
and they have a kind of temporary space.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
anyways,
yeah.
they've been
Long developing.
conceptualizing what will be the Museum of Modern Art of Asia.
Yeah.
I mean, starting with the question of what is Asia. So Dorian's been, and we were headed to Pakistan, and there were terrorist attacks on Westerners, and so we changed our plans and we went to India, which is a place we both had been, so we kind of broke the rule. But I hadn't been to India in 10 years, and there was a completely different art world, so that was interesting to see and experience. With Ruba, we went to the Caucasus, and with Magali Areola, who I understand was as a curator in residence, independent curator based in Mexico City. She was interested in the sort of colonial exchange history between Mexico and the Philippines when they were both under Spanish rule. So we went to Manila and Singapore and parts of Vietnam.
Great.
So, yeah.
Excuse me.
They were very rigorous. I like that you said that these trips when we were in the Bahamas I was filling out my customs form, and it said, "Are you here for bird watching, surfing, a wedding, or all these things like work?"
Yeah, right.
So.
Yeah. So I know you have some images. Will you talk us through them?
Yes. Okay. So I think that you were starting with El Anatsui. There was the facade of the building, the facade of the museum. I invited the great Ghanaian artist El Anatsui
Genius artist.
Yeah, to create a sculpture for the facade. Our building is a marvelous brutalist Edward Larrabee Barnes building, and on this sort of severe overhang, El created one of his incredible works using recycled metals. So there's a passage that's very colorful, that's his sort of signature with the thousands of bottle caps all joined together. And then this reflective material that for Elle very specifically is behind the Richard Serra that stands on our plaza to open up space behind the Serra. He wanted to kind of bring in light and reflection behind it. And then in between, Elle talked about how he wanted something, a material is very everyday. And he said that for him, there's nothing more everyday than information. So their printing plates kind of are kind of the sort of filler of this metal fabric, this drapery. And I invited Elle Anatsui specifically because these mantles that he creates for architectures, to me, are kind of connecting these ambitious global exhibitions. So the first one I had ever seen was at the Venice Biennale, and
yeah, I remember that.
so forth. So Elle created this incredible mantle for the facade of the museum, and the bottle cap element came from Nigeria, but the other parts we worked with fabricators in Pittsburgh. So it's truly an international work of art. So,
Nice.
yeah. And then I think there's an image of John Rubin and Lenka Clayton, two Pittsburgh-based artists with international careers. They inaugurated the Guggenheim Social Practice series of exhibitions in 2016. And I asked them to do a special project for the International. And they, after a long process of research, they landed on an archive within the museum about the early history of the International, when artists would submit paintings for consideration in this prestigious show, and your work was either accepted or rejected. And so the museum kept track of all both accepted and rejected. So John and Lenka worked with all the rejected titles, and over the course of the exhibition transformed these titles into paintings on paper that visitors could take home. So you'll see an image of John and Lenka sitting there painting, and it was sort of like a clockwork factory with the exhibition. And Heidi, 4:48, last day of exhibition, they were painting the last painting. The titles were in alphabetical order. There was 10,632 titles. The last title was Zinnias. And,
Amazing.
Yep. So it finished
amazing.
right on time.
I didn't know that John Rubin was in Pittsburgh. He's a
Yeah.
really interesting artist.
Yeah, with his Conflict Kitchen, which closed recently, but operated for many years as a takeout food window where the food would be of a region where the U.S. was in conflict with. So it was ever-changing, seemingly infinite cuisines. So Neon House, truly the kind of the heartbeat of the exhibition, became work by Alex DeCorta, who I knew from Philadelphia. Alex is a Philadelphia artist. I worked with him on his first museum show at ICA, and so I invited him to do something ambitious for the Carnegie International, and boy did he. He built a house out of neon, and in the house is a giant TV screen, and on the TV are 57, Alex calls them cartoons, and in fact it's Alex as Sylvester the Cat and Bugs Bunny and different cartoon characters in these videos of different durations. And with Alex's work, there's always many layers of reference to popular culture and art culture, but then just all kind of seamlessly in this. It's very emotional. It's very, I call it a very sticky work of art, because people would go in the house and they wouldn't want to leave the house. And it was it was a beautiful work by Alex. And then when I moved to Pittsburgh, the first studio visit I had was with an artist, Thaddeus Mosley, who's beloved regionally, but really not known, certainly not known nationally even. And Thaddeus is an artist who, during our studio visit, he talked very meaningfully about how the Carnegie International, for him, really brought art from around the world to Pittsburgh for someone who was not traveling himself. And he said that it was in the 1958 Carnegie International he was introduced to the work of Noguchi, which inspired him to start working abstractly with wood and carving, which he continues to do. Thaddeus is 92. He's in that studio every day making these magnificent sculptures.
Amazing.
And so they were very present, both indoors and out. And so that was, and Thaddeus is an artist the museum has shown over the years and collected. You know, it's not like he's been ignored by the museum.
Yeah.
But he was had a really strong presence in the international. And Lynette Yadom-Boake, the painter of Ghanaian heritage, a British artist, who paints black figures from her imagination, did a beautiful installation of all new work on magnolia-colored walls. She told us to paint the walls magnolia. Lynette was the Carnegie Prize winner for this international. So since 1896, an artist wins this medal that Tiffany designed. You know, it's very 19th century. So she won the medal, and we won. We acquired this incredible painting for the collection of two figures crouching, about to leap or dance or spring. And so Tavares Strawn, a Bahamian artist I had worked with at ICA, and invited him to come to Pittsburgh and talk about doing something for the Carnegie International. And Tavares was very struck by the historic building, part of the building, has engraved around the cornice the names of great white men of art and music and science and literature. And so Tavares took note, and he made this proposal to add a register, a new register in neon of the names of women and people of color who have contributed to making culture rich. So, so we had El Anatsui, this major work on the Art Museum, and then on the historic building Tavares. So the exhibition really hugged the museum and saturated the museum with contemporary art.
Great. Thank you so much for talking us through the show and your process. And I have to say, I can't remember actually when we met. I know we've known each other for a really long time. And there's certain people, when I talk to them, they just make me feel smarter, and you are one of them.
Oh,
so
Heidi.
Thank you for being here. I'm really grateful.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thanks. I'm Heidi Zuckerman. This is Art Matters. My guest today has been Ingrid Schaffner. And yeah, look up the first one, too. You can see what we were talking about a decade ago and what we're talking about today. I'm sure, knowing us, it was about how art matters, because it does. So thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in.